He has coached South Africa to 2 World Series titles and a Commonwealth Games gold medal and an Olympic bronze medal. But for Blitzbok coach Neil Powell, the job is only partly about winning titles. The South Africa Sevens program has become the envy of the world game, where it keeps churning out world-class Sevens players every year and setting the tactical standard for the shorter version of the sport. The team had set its sights on Olympic gold in Tokyo this year, but that target has moved after the postponement of the global showpiece to July and August 2021, following the outbreak of the coronavirus. It will lead to a massive adjustment for the Blitzboks preparation timeframes, but will also give them a chance to evolve even further. Welcome to the Maverick Sports Podcast with me, Craig Ray, and today it's my great pleasure to welcome Neil Powell onto the show. Hi, Neil.
Hi, Craig. Thank you for inviting me to talk to you on the show.
Yeah, great. Thanks for taking the time. We're all in lockdown. How have you been coping with the first week or so of lockdown?
Yeah, I think for everybody, the first week is probably going to be the easiest week. I think week 2 and 3 is probably going to be a bit challenging. And if we go into week 4 and 5, which is probably a big reality that we'll go further than week 3. But yeah, I think for us, especially in the sevens setup, especially this time of the year, we away from home a lot. And I'm very much a family man, so I enjoy spending time with my family. And for me, this is a massive positive just to be able to spend time with my wife and my 2 boys. They are 8 and 3.5 years old, so it's great spending time with them.
Yeah, I suppose there is that positive aspect for a lot of families, just to have a bit of time to take stock. I suppose from a rugby point of view, for the better part of more than a decade at this time of year, you've been busy and suddenly it's all gone. So that must be quite an adjustment. And especially for the players who are very active people, they got a lot of energy. What have you been saying to the players in terms of lockdown and staying fit and keeping to some kind of routine?
Yeah, I think for us, because everything got moved to basically the later part of the year, so London and Paris only in September, and then Hong Kong, Singapore only in October, and then the Olympics only next year. We basically see this first 3 weeks of lockdown as our off season. So we gonna go into a very long season where normally we'll only have 10 tournaments, or would have had 10 tournaments next year, and then nothing after that. We basically gonna have 14 tournaments and the Olympics. So it's going to be a very long season. And we need to make sure that we don't just manage the players well in that long season, but in this time as well, to make sure that we don't mentally fatigue them before we get back onto the training field. So we told the players that we see this first 3 weeks as an off season. And as soon as we can get back on the field, we'll basically start with a pre-season, which will mainly be conditioning and strength training and then skill development.
It must be quite a physiological challenge because everything you've done from last October, November, when the squad started coming together and then tapered into the first 2 tournaments of the year in December, it was sort of geared towards a target, which was the Olympic Games in July of 2020.
Yeah.
Physiologically, I know you're giving them the off-season now, but has it been quite an adjustment in terms of how you re-peak again, shall we say, in a year later than anticipated?
Yeah, it is a bit of a difficult challenge. I think, yeah, obviously everything we did this season was aimed at the Olympics. The way we tested players, the way we got those 15 players back for those first 2 tournaments, and I think the amazing thing about the opportunity that lies ahead of us is if we'd done anything wrong in those first 6 tournaments or first, say, 6 months building to what would have been the 2020 Olympics, we can now learn from those mistakes and do it better the second time around. So I think, again, we see it as a positive. And yes, it is difficult, almost more difficult to get your head around it. I think from a physical point of view, we can always get the guys fit again and strong again. The fitness and the strength that we had before this season started is nothing different to any other season. So yes, we tried to push the guys maybe a little bit harder, but it's not a 50% difference. It's probably like a 10 or 20% difference at most. So we'll keep on pushing when we get back onto the field. But I think the biggest thing is the mental challenge. I mean, you could see it in the guys already in the season that just fighting for those positions in the Olympic squad and already played 6 tournaments, and now they have to play 14 tournaments to get into an Olympic squad. So it is going to be, I think it's going to be more of a mental challenge than a physical challenge, especially for the players.
You would have had to do some negotiating around getting the release of maybe some players to be considered for the Olympics, someone like Cheslin Colby and, Ciabello, Sonatla, Kocher Smith, all these guys, maybe a few others that are playing 15s. And you probably had done your homework and you'd been to see the unions and everything was sort of on track, and then suddenly it all moves by a year. So those negotiations probably have to happen all over again, because the time frames are going to be different for everyone next year in 15s and at their clubs and so on, given that it's likely, especially in Europe, maybe with Cheslin Colby's involved, this season's going to be cancelled completely in France. So who knows what impact that might have on next season in France. So are these other issues you have to sort of confront in the next little while?
Yeah, I think it is. We're unfortunately going to have to go sit with all the unions again and talk about those players that we think we want to use in the Olympics. And again, I think there's positives and negatives. I think we couldn't get our hands on Cheslin for 2 tournaments. Maybe there's opportunity now to get him in for maybe Paris, London, which is in September. Maybe the season haven't kicked off yet in France, or Hong Kong, Singapore in October. So I think it creates other opportunities as well. But unfortunately, we're going to have to sit with the unions again and do our planning in terms of those 15th players and when we want them to be released to us. But again, we can only do that part of the negotiations when we know what the French league is going to look like and what the Currie Cup is going to look like in South Africa and when the Super Rugby is going to start. So there's a lot of variables still and uncertainty still in terms of season and tournaments and competitions that we probably going to have to sit and wait for another, I say, probably at least 2 months to see how this coronavirus spread is going and how quickly we can get information on the specific tournaments and dates.
It sounds like you're quite adaptable, although given the nature of what you do, there's a lot of structure, in terms of your day, and everything's set months in advance, and on the July the 13th, your team will be doing this and that, and what hour they're going to do it. That's the kind of level of detail you've gone to. These variables that have been thrown at you because of coronavirus, is that, are you guys adaptable enough, do you think, to cope with them?
Yeah, I think we are adaptable, and yes, you're right. We are very structured, and I think at times maybe too structured, and we need to get out of our comfort zone sometimes. But I think one of the things that we've learned from the Seventh Circuit is just to control the controllables. I think stuff that we can't control, it's needless to almost use physical or mental energy on thinking about it and worrying about things that we can't control. And I think it happened so many times to us where we were waiting for a bus to get to the game, and then the bus is 10 minutes late, and because we're so structured, 22 you do your top-up strapping, and then at 10 o'clock you do your video session, and then 20 past 10 it's your activation, and then half past 10 it's your warm-up. So it's very structured, and when the bus is 10 minutes late, it affects the rest of the sequence going into a game, and we had to learn to adapt and accept that and control the controllables, and that's our mindset. And sometimes we'll make the warm-up 5 minutes shorter, and the guys need to get themselves ready mentally and physically in a 15-minute warm-up rather than a 20-minute warm-up. And I think that's one of the things that the Seventh Circuit taught us, was everything doesn't always happen like you want it to happen, even on the field as well. I think at times we can be a little bit more adaptable. I think if things don't happen exactly the way we want it to happen, we struggle to adapt a little bit. But it's something that we, as a management, as a team, tried to work on over the last 2 years, and I think we're definitely getting better at it. So yeah, I think control the controllables, and like I said, if the only thing that I like is before I do my plannings, I need to get the detail. I need to know the facts. So I can't do planning and then planning again after we've got the dates, and then planning again when it changes again. So I'll rather sit out a little bit and wait till we get all the detail and all the facts and all the dates of all the tournaments, and then sit down and do a detailed plan about how we're going to get ourselves to the Olympics in the best possible mental and physical state.
You guys have achieved so much over the decade, but you were a sevens player yourself. You played for the Blitzboks, and correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, you played in the title-winning team in 2009.
Yes, I was part of that squad and of that team.
Yeah.
I didn't play the first part of the season. Basically, the first, I think, 4 tournaments. I I broke my arm in a Currie Cup game, in the Currie Cup just before that season, and it kept me out of the first 4 tournaments
Wow.
for that season, but did play towards the end, but more off the bench type of play. You know what it's like. So when you're a senior player and you get those type of injuries, then there's those youngsters take the opportunity when they get that. And I think
Yeah.
for me in that particular situation, it was Carl Brown. He actually got his opportunity to start,
Oh, wow.
and he really played well. And he became the number one hooker in the team. And I I came off the bench for him. So and that's life. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Good on him for taking his opportunity when it was presented to him. So yes, I was part of that squad, and Zwandile Stick was the captain that year. I was the captain the year before, so he was the captain in that year. And yeah, it was great to be part of that team, that the first South African sevens team that won the World Series.
It was. And just going back a little bit, your rugby career, you played Currie Cup, you were at the Free State, you were scrum half. When did you sort of think of sevens as a viable option as a rugby player? Because I suppose in the early years of the World Series, which started in '99, the sevens was almost an afterthought. We sort of just put a team together and they went off and played. There wasn't a real structure to the sevens for a while. I mean, we'll get to that in a moment. But so when did you as a player go, well, actually the sevens thing, I quite like this. This could become a viable career option?
Yeah, to be honest, I've played sevens, I think the first time in my life when I was 11 years old. There was a sevens competition at one of the schools in Bloemfontein called Onze Rust. And funny enough, I was player of the tournament, so that's probably where it all started, way back when I was 11 years old. And then I've got my first opportunity. I got invited to a sevens trials, by Ian McIntosh.
Yeah.
Then didn't make the team that went to the last 2 tournaments. So it was London and Cardiff at that stage. Wasn't selected to go to those last 2 tournaments of the season. Under, I think it was Norman Mbiko was actually the head coach, and then Ian McIntosh was assigned from SA Rugby to go and assist Norman Mbiko. And then somebody got injured in the first tournament in London, and then I got called up for that tournament in Cardiff. So my very first sevens tournament was in Cardiff under Ian McIntosh. And I think you mentioned it in the question as well. Sevens wasn't that big way back then. And I think one of the front runners for Springbok Sevens in South Africa was Ian McIntosh. And if you speak to Ian McIntosh, he will always tell you the story that he went to South Africa or to SA Rugby and said, listen, if you want these guys to wear that Springbok jersey, then you must treat them like Springbok players. You can't just select a mediocre team and then send the guys to a tournament and we don't do well. You need to put resources into the system and make sure that they are the best that they can be to represent South Africa. Otherwise, you must call them something different and give them a different jersey. So he was a big front runner and advocate for Springbok Sevens in South Africa. And he probably started the whole professional era way back then. So for me, then I only played those 2 tournaments, or that 1 tournament in Cardiff, and then never played again. But then Chester took over from Norman Mbiko. Chester Williams took over from Norman Mbiko and Ian McIntosh the following year. I think it was end of 99 or end of 2000. And then they played a tournament in Dubai, got 3 injuries there. And then Chester actually phoned McIntosh and asked him, so he's in trouble, he needs 3 players. There wasn't a pool of players or a squad like we have now. So when an injury happened like that, you will pull players from 15s and get them to the next tournaments. So, and interesting enough, they invited 3 players to that week leading up to the Durban tournament. So the tournament was still in Durban that year. It was myself, Brent Russell, and then one other guy from the Bulls, but he then only were there for that 1 week and never came back to the sevens again. So that was also where Brent Russell's career started as a sevens player, was in that tournament in Durban.
You would have loved to have a Brent Russell full-time sevens player as a coach, surely. I mean, geez, that guy, if ever there was a player built for sevens, he would have been the guy, wouldn't he?
Yeah, no, he's an amazing little player, and I think he's one of those players that's got the full package. I mean,
he was pretty good at 15s, wasn't he?
He was, and you would think a small guy like that won't be able to hold his own in the contact situations and in the physical areas, but he was pretty good in those areas as well. And then, I mean, his attacking ability and his explosiveness was just amazing. Something that is definitely one of the attributes in sevens that will make you a star, and he had all of that.
Yeah. The years go on. I mean, the sevens program, as we've discussed earlier, wins the 2008-9 World Series. And let's be honest, it was Fiji and New Zealand really dominated. In fact, New Zealand, I think, won the first 6 versions of the World Seven Series, and then Fiji won one, and New Zealand won another 2, and finally South Africa won one. So at that point, it was more of an anomaly. Did that fuel your sort of desire, your future desire to go, we've got to be able to compete with these guys consistently? Was that where the seeds of sort of coaching and developing the Sevens program started?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think for me, sevens is such a beautiful game. I think at that stage, say 2007, 8, 9, 10, I think 15s was so structured. And for me as a scrum half, I felt like being in different 15 setups. In 15s, they tell you when to kick, when to run, when to pass. Where with sevens, it's a little bit different. Yes, there's structure, but there's also a lot of freedom. I mean, you could play your own individual attributes and almost express yourself out there. Where with 15, sometimes they put you in a box and they tell you when to do what. And I think what inspired me as a coach to be successful was basically, I think, New Zealand. I think New Zealand dominated the World Series for such a long time, like you rightfully mentioned. But
Yeah.
and I think at one stage, I think 2006, 2007, or 2007, 2008 season, New Zealand won 47 games in a row
Wow.
without a loss. And we beat them in Adelaide for the first time, where they lost in 47 games. And I never mentioned it to anybody or to the players, but I was always aspiring to get to that record of 47 winning games in a row. But I think the World Series became so competitive now these days that it is virtually impossible to, well, I think, win 20 games in a row without a loss. It's just too unpredictable. It's just too finely balanced. It's one mistake or one call is not going your way, and you find yourself on the wrong side of the result. So obviously the massive, almost like pride in Springbok rugby and Springbok sevens. I think as a small boy, I always used to watch those Springbok Saga rugby tapes where I've at one stage, I think I've watched it so many times that I could commentate word for word with the commentator on the tape. So, massive passion for South African rugby and for Springboks, 15s and 7s. And growing up, always wanted to be a Springbok rugby player. So, I think that's probably where it came from.
We're jumping around in the timeline a bit, but once your playing career ended, as I understand it, you and Marius Skuman took a proposal to SA Rugby about developing a Sevens Academy. Tell us the story behind that and give us sort of time frame. It was around 2010, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, when was it? I was going to think back quickly. There was 3 guys. Kuni de Villiers was the other guy. He was basically a Springbok wrestler that when Paul was still the coach, Paul contacted him and asked him, listen, can you come work with the guys in terms of the contact skills? So that's where we started the wrestling stuff for our contact skills was with Kuni de Villiers.
Yeah.
That was a Springbok wrestler. And he, at one stage, it was him and myself and Marius Skuman that was sitting together and talking about the possibility of doing sevens clinics first. So the first idea was 7 clinics and then maybe a commercial sevens academy, and then we thought by ourselves, well, there's only one sevens team in South Africa. There's not like Alliance and a Western Province sevens and a Free State. So I think a commercial thing won't really work. But what will work nicely is if we can start a South African Rugby Academy. So we drew up a proposal. Probably took us like a year. We probably started 2010, but only got it done by 2011. And then took it first to Johan Prinsloo, that was still the CEO at that stage. And it was in that transition phase where Yuri then took over from him. And then luckily Johan Prinsloo talked to Yuri and said to him, listen, these guys have got a plan and he thinks that SA Rugby needs to back this plan. So took then the plan to Yuri and they bought into it. So we opened the door of that Sevens Academy in January 2012. And our intake that year was Cheslin Colby, Justin Geduld, Werner Kok, Kwagga Smith, and then there was 3 other guys that then didn't make it via Strydom, and then 2 older players. They won 19, they were 2021. But yeah, happy that we had that first intake, and obviously the fact that we had so much success with that first intake definitely helped us to almost punt this SA Academy or Rugby Sevens Academy more with South African rugby and say, listen guys, this is successful. the guys are getting into the 15s or into the senior sevens team. So please keep the doors open of this academy. So yeah, that's how we started. But I never thought that I will go into coaching. I always said I'm going to get married after I played rugby, because I don't want to have this my wife and my kids to have the same life as what I'm having as a rugby player. And now I'm a coach. Growing up, it was never something that was in my head. I want to become a coach. But that last 2 years of my playing career, I really enjoyed when we did drills, in the drill, to individually like take some of those junior players aside and go, this was maybe not a good option. You should have done this in this situation, or just to almost rectify them and just to channel them a little bit into the right direction. And a guy like William Small-Smith and Paul Jordan that was part of that squad and that just came out of school. And I almost could feel they was starting to almost develop a passion for this coaching and working with these young men inside of me, and it almost came into my mind, or I was thinking about maybe coaching is something that I would like to do, and that is a passion of mine, and I think I will definitely enjoy it.
So it was just an evolution really into coaching, rather than what you woke up one day and said I'm a coach. You sort of were doing it anyway.
Yeah, no, it was definitely not there always, and it almost developed as I almost finished my playing career and worked with the younger guys in the system still as a player.
Yeah, and I mean, it's now grown, Neil, from those humble beginnings. The academy is now really, as I said in my intro, the envy of the world game. I mean, you guys do you contract, I think it's 28 or 29 players full time now. You basically run. You could run 4 squads, but you run 2 very successful squads with the academy team and the sevens. The women's program's coming online as well.
Yeah.
Could you have envisaged how successful it would have been? And I'm not just talking about results. I'm talking about the way you develop players.
Yeah, not really. I think you sometimes stand in awe and think, "Sheesh, how did this happen so quickly?" And again, I think it's not just one person; it's the whole system. I mean, from Marius with the academy, they follow exactly the same values and culture in the academy system, so that when the guys come through to the senior side, they already fill up the water bottles, and they will already carry the stuff, and they will already get up when you walk into a room to greet you, and just the small things. I think that makes a massive difference. And our mission statement is touching people's lives or inspiring hope, and it's not just on the field, but it's off the field as well. And we always tell the guys they can never underestimate just a good morning with a smile on your face to somebody that maybe doesn't have a great day. So we have an amazing bunch of people in the system, management and players, and it's just an incredible privilege and honor to be part of this system.
And what are the other major aspects of the sevens program? And we've seen the change at Springboks and a lot of provincial unions now, but you guys have been the flagship of integrated teams of transformation, and that's not a conscious effort. It's just that you've looked at every player, I guess, as players, and it's just taken a natural evolution. Your team is massively transformed. Is that something you even consciously think about, or it's just part of what you do?
Yeah, I think it's part of our culture. One of the best examples I can mention is, as a 15s player, you always used to be so quiet before the games and everybody's in their own zone. And the first time I came to the sevens, just before the warm-up, the guys have this big speaker in a team room or in a change room, and then they start playing this music, and half of the team are getting up and dancing, and sometimes they will have a dance off, and I'm like, what is this? What are you guys doing? This is the part of rugby. You must be serious, and you're going to go into war now. You can't put music on and start dancing. And I think it was something that was strange to me, but again, it was from a culture that was brought into the sevens team that I know made the guys better and the team better. And I think there's a lot of those small things that we can take from different cultures and backgrounds that contributes in making the system what it is today. And we always say that the system is doing well when there's smiles on their faces. So when I walk into the change room and the guys are quiet and you can see the tenseness in their faces and there's no music, nobody's dancing, then I know we're in trouble. But if the music is on and the guys are dancing, then I know the opposition is in trouble. And it's amazing. We've seen it so many times. We played in a final in New Zealand against Fiji, where the guys, basically all 12 guys or 13 guys, were standing in a circle and they had a dance off. So one at a time, somebody came in, showed his moves and went out again, and the next guy will go in, and we beat Fiji in that final. It's just amazing how the different cultures and what they can bring to the team helps to to make this system successful, and that's how we embrace that diversity and the different cultures. And I don't think the guys are even seeing color anymore. They're friends, and I sometimes go, because they will go after a full day of training, they will go to the closest coffee shop and they will have coffee together. And then it's Carl, that's English speaking, Philip, that's Afrikaans speaking, Sissel, that's colored from PE, Ciabello, that's a Sotho from the Free State, and then Zandile Ngobo, that's Zulu from Johannesburg. So it's just amazing how these guys, different backgrounds, they don't just get along, but they actually love each other's company. And for me, it's almost a practical example of what South Africa could be.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's wonderful. And I mean, it comes through in the play. It comes through on the field. Talking about the play, you became head coach, and you had 4 seasons of runners up in the World Series. In that time, there was a Commonwealth Games gold medal as well, and the Olympic Games of 2016, where you earned a bronze medal, which of course is a fantastic achievement, winning a medal. But the next season, you really put that all behind you in a big way. You won 4 of the first 5 tournaments of the year. You made 7 finals in a row up until Hong Kong. You pretty much put the season to bed by Hong Kong. And then you defended the title the following year, but that was dramatic. You were always chasing Fiji down in that season, and Fiji were just ahead, and you just kept it going. You got to the last 2 tournaments of the year needing to do really well. You came second in London, and then you won in Paris, but you needed Fiji to, as I recall, miss out on the quarterfinals in Paris to win it. And that happened. And then, of course, you still had to go and win it, because by that stage, you were still 3 games away from winning it. So that must have been quite an amazing one in a different way.
Yeah, it's one of those tournaments where you almost feel like everything that happened in that tournament was out of your hands, and it was such a weird string of events in that particular tournament. We obviously, going into Paris, we knew that Fiji had to lose in a quarterfinal, and then we need to win the tournament to win the World Series. And I basically thought, what's the chances? Because Fiji was also so good that season, that they were losing that they were losing a quarterfinal. And then started that tournament, I think we didn't have a 10. Cecil got injured in London. We flew Devil Demon over, but we actually started with Ruan Nel in that tournament, and I think we actually lost our first game against Scotland. I think we lost the first game. We beat the team that we played second, and then had to play Canada in the third game to still beat them and make it to the quarterfinal. And then the first 2 games, Ruan really struggled in the fly-off position, and we decided in that Canada game to start Yapi or Devil Iman, and he actually had a marvelous game, and we managed to put Canada away quite well, something like 31-10 or 31-12 or something like that to make it to the quarterfinal.
Wow.
And then we got Spain in the quarterfinal, and we were the very last quarterfinal of all the quarterfinals. So going into that game, Fiji just played before us in their quarterfinal, or they played 2 games before us in a quarterfinal. So just before we went out to warm up, I saw that Fiji lost in a quarterfinal, and I tried to keep it quiet. I can still remember Zane Davids coming from the toilet just before going to the warm up, and he saw on the TV that Fiji lost. And I pulled him aside before he got to the team and said to him, "Listen, if you tell the guys that Fiji lost in the quarterfinal, I will kill you." And I remember he looked at me with this big eyes, and he walked past me, and he went into the change room, and we went out for a warm up. But as we went out for the warm up, the Fijians came back, and you could see on their faces that they've lost, and obviously then the players knew. So warmed up, went out on the field against Spain, and I just had this funny feeling, this is not going to be that easy. Just in Spain, with nothing to lose, threw everything at us, and it actually took us to go into extra time to beat Spain in a quarterfinal. And then had to play New Zealand in the semis, which is obviously not an easy game, but the guys really did well to beat New Zealand, and then had to play England in the final. And again, amazing thing that happened in that game was, so they kicked off first half. We played, I think it was still tight at halftime, or we were 1 try ahead, I think, at halftime. So it was 14-7 or 12-7 or something like that. And then at halftime, it started to rain.
Yeah.
And that made the ball very slippery. So we kicked on them, and we managed to pin them in their 22. They made a handling mistake, and we capitalized and we scored off that. The second time when we kicked off, they tried to kick it back to us, gave us ball position, and we scored again. So we had that amazing blessing of that rain starting at halftime to almost help us to put that game in the second half. So yeah, amazing tournament. And one of those tournaments, like I said, where it just feels like nothing that happened you could have prevented or helped. It was just it just felt like it was out of your hands, and there was a higher power that obviously helped you to pull that one through.
And it's gone on like that. You achieved the target of qualifying for the Olympics the following year. You didn't defend the title for a third time in a row, but objectives were different. Players come and go. It was also a 15s World Cup. So and you had a lot of players then deciding to go to 15s, to Dylan Sage, Kwagga Smith, Siabelo Sonata, Roscoe Speckman. All these players, have sort of transitioned to 15s. So last year was a year of growth and squad depth, which is obviously something that's going to stand you in good stead in the coming years.
Yeah, I think it was a challenging year. Like I said, I think that first 4-5 years of my coaching career were really blessed with a lot of success, and then that fifth season or sixth season came, and all of a sudden, all of the players that you've spent so much time on developing and in getting them ready for the seventh game just left and play 15s, and I think as a coach you probably were disappointed, but you also knew that that's what the seventh system is about. It's a tool to develop players, not just for sevens but for 15s as well, and South African 15s players like Springbok 15s players. So we always knew that at some stage we are probably going to get players that will leave and go to the 15s. And I think in that year there was a lot of players that left: Tim Magaba, Dylan Sage, Ruan Nel, Roscoe Speckman. I think if you look at the positions and the players, you could basically field a full squad or full team with the players that left in that season. Siabelo Sonata. So it was really tough. And then we had a big injury to Cecil that year as well, and I think Kyle as well. So, or Philip, one of the two. But anyways, so difficult season, and at stages we had to make decisions to leave some of the senior players at home to make sure that we developed a junior player like a JC Pretorius or a Kurtley Arends or a Stetman Gans. And it was tough times because you knew that you're probably going to sacrifice results to almost get that player's experience and game time. But it's something that we needed to do to make sure that the following season we in a good space in terms of where we want to go, and especially in having in mind the Olympics the next season. So it was a tough season. I think at times you almost were losing hope, and then the next tournament we played well again, and this team started to gel as a team. But it was a difficult year. I think probably one of my most challenging coaching seasons or seasons as a coach, and it was tough. And I think personally it takes a lot out of you as well, and it doesn't just affect you, it affects your family as well. My wife lives this emotion and everything with me when we're in the sevens field. So the first few years we were a little bit spoiled, and now we almost got a bit of a reality check of what it's really like on the seventh circuit in the last year or two.
Just in summation, Neil, wrapping up, how long do you see yourself doing this job? Because it must take its toll, as you've just described there. It's stressful, but it's also what you love, so it's a trade-off. How long do you see yourself in the role? Certainly in South Africa, anyway. Do you have any plans to move on?
Yeah, it's a good question, but a tough question, and I think it's not just the. I think the emotional toll and the mental toll that it takes on you, but also the time away from home. I mean, my boys are growing up as well. They're 8 and 3.5 years old, and you miss a lot of the activities and the sporting games and tournaments and everything. So it's a lot of decisions that I have to make. And being a family man, it's probably going to be because of the family that I make decisions. But I also told my wife that I won't be able to do this job for longer than 10 years because I think I'll die before I'm 50. So it doesn't look like I have emotions when I sit next to the field, but there's definitely a storm brewing inside of me. So it looks calm on the outside, but it's definitely not a case on the inside. So this was my 7th season, so we'll have to see. We'll sit and talk with SA Rugby and see what they think, and if there's maybe possibility of another position inside of SA Rugby, or then maybe other ventures. I'm not sure what yet, whether it's 15s or maybe another seventh country or maybe totally different, something different. But let's see how it goes. I think it will probably be another 2 years until 2022 after the World Cup in South Africa.
Yeah.
But then probably going to have to make some decisions.
Well, it's going to be an interesting time as well. The world's landscape will probably change after coronavirus, and certainly the sporting landscape is under a lot of financial stress and strain at the moment.
Yeah.
We might see a different world, a different series, we don't know what it's going to bring, Neil, but I suppose, like you said earlier, you guys are ready for any challenge, and I guess there will be some challenges ahead because of what the globe is going through at the moment.
Yeah. No, it is challenging times, and I think, like I said, I think there's probably still a lot more to come in terms of lockdowns and the time that we're going to have to stay in lockdown and what's going to happen. And I think from our side, we would like to encourage South Africans and everybody across the globe to stay home and make sure that we unite behind this thing and that we look after each other. Let us make sure that our fellow South Africans and fellow people in the world are safe and that we do our part to try and not just flatten the curve, but to stop the spread of this virus. So it's interesting times, and I would really like to encourage people to stay safe and make sure that everybody abide to the laws that were put out there by President Mr. Ramaphosa.
Neil Powell, it's been a great pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us on the Maverick Sports Podcast today. And go well when you do get back on the field. We'll talk to you in the future. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks a lot, Craig. It was great to talk to you. Thank you.
This podcast is made possible by our Maverick Insiders. Please consider becoming part of our Maverick Insider community where, for a nominal fee every month, you are supporting quality independent journalism. You also get some cool benefits such as Uber vouchers when the coronavirus pandemic subsides and engagement with our journalists thrown in. Please go to dailymaverick.co.za/insider to sign up and become part of the Maverick Insider community. Also, remember to sign up to our Maverick Sports newsletter, which hits your inbox on a Monday, and never miss another podcast by signing up via your favorite platform. I'm Craig Ray. Thanks so much for joining us this week.